Ho, 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 Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everybody. For this year's Christmas special, I thought I'd do something different. Sure, we could have looked back on a classic like Home Alone, Christmas Vacation, or A Christmas Story, given that it just had a direct-to-streaming legacy sequel that nobody cares about, but I wanted to go bold. I wanted to take Christmas back to its roots. And what is it that your annoying relatives constantly remind you that Christmas is all about? Jeebus. Yes, today we're exploring not one, but two films about the big man himself, Martin Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ, and Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ. Full disclosure, I'm not religious in any capacity, but this video will not bash any religions, much, but what we will be doing is comparing and contrasting these films over several factors, namely regarding the portrayal of Jesus in each film, and the quality of the films themselves. If you're not familiar with either film, Temptation tells the story of Jesus' life as he struggles with the burdens that come with his harrowing birthright, and Passion more simply depicts the last few hours of Jesus' life in excruciating detail. Got it? Good. Let's jump right in. Christ v. Christ. Scorsese v. Crazy Person. Defoe v. Another Crazy Person. Temptation v. Passion. Let's get the big question out of the way. Which of these two is the better film? For me, the answer is clear and obvious. The Passion. No. Temptation.
Believe me, those who are laughing now will be crying later.
It's the vastly superior film. For one, it's the only movie between these two movies that actually functions like a movie. There's a main character who makes decisions and has an arc. There are side characters with motivations, and there's a story being told, interwoven with complex themes. Passion has none of those things. Like I said in the intro, it's just a visual depiction of events. It's like a 2-hour-long vignette. There are no characters, no story being told, really, and no thematic resonance whatsoever.
And it's not just about the event. It's not some kind of chronological telling of just that event. That could be boring, and you think, well, we read that.
In the film's Wikipedia page, there's a short section generously titled Themes, where director Mel Gibson had this to say. He said, "This is a movie about love, hope, faith, and forgiveness. Jesus died for all mankind, suffered for all of us. It's time to get back to that basic message. The world has gone to nuts. We could all use a little more love, faith, hope, and forgiveness." Did he and I watch the same movie? Like, maybe you could point to a line here or a moment there that could fit that description, but it'd be a better, but still not great description for Temptation.
When those people were torturing Magdalene, I wanted to kill them. And then I opened my mouth, and out comes the word love. Why? I don't understand.
Let's prove this scientifically. I've got the scripts to both films right here, and I'm gonna read them and come back with my results. Here goes nothing.
One eternity later.
Okay, so Jamie, pull up that Mel Gibson quote again. Love, hope, whatever, yeah, that one. So love is mentioned in Passion 7 times total and 31 times in Temptation. Hope is mentioned 0 times in Passion and 3 times in Temptation. Faith is mentioned 0 times in Passion and once in Temptation. Forgiveness is mentioned 3 times in Passion and 10 times in Temptation. I mean, I know Temptation is longer and had significantly more dialogue, but whatever. I'm right. Let's get back to my point. I went in with a fairly open mind, but I was honestly bored to tears watching Passion. I get it. I'm not a Christian, so I'm not exactly the target audience, but it was still a wide release movie that ended up being the most financially successful R-rated film for over a decade after its release, so I at least expected it to function somewhat like a real movie. Gibson's a generally competent filmmaker, which makes the complete lack of movie in this movie a strange choice.
Sure, I see a little white guy on this shoulder and a guy with a pitchfork on this shoulder, and they're talking into your ears.
Brett, what do you think they're saying to me?
Its biggest issue is that it doesn't have a main character. Like, I get it, it's supposed to be Jesus, but he doesn't do anything in the entire film that would be indicative of a protagonist. The film doesn't really give him the opportunity. I mean, in the novelization, by this point, the story is basically over. All of his character development had already happened by this point. This movie is like if the original Star Wars film was just a 2-hour-long sequence of the Death Star battle. You'd be like, huh? Who are all these people? What is this place? What are the stakes? What are the consequences? What is our lead character feeling? You know what? I will take back my statement that the film doesn't have a main character. It does, and his name is Violence. Even if you're only tangentially aware of this film, you've probably heard about how violent it is. Well, it's everything you heard of and more. It really becomes absurd. It's like a Saw film, and I couldn't help but laugh multiple times at how ridiculous it got. You'd think Mel Gibson hates Jesus with how much they just beat the shit out of him. Are we sure this wasn't directed by Richard Dawkins under a pseudonym? Like, I get it. People were shitty to him in his final hours, and it's meant to show just how big his sacrifice was, but Temptation also depicts the Passion with significantly less violence, yet I was significantly more invested in its interpretation because I actually cared about this Jesus. Movies need to earn moments like this, and Passion doesn't do anything to make me care about this character. I guess you could make the argument that maybe Gibson's Jesus was meant to be more of a vicarious experience. Every Christian has their own personal idea of who Jesus was, and maybe by leaving it open, you're meant to imprint your own Jesus onto this Jesus. But if you don't care about Jesus or know a whole lot about him like me, you're not going to get much out of it. Not sure at all if that's even remotely what he was going for, and I'm not even saying that there isn't any merit to the film or his interpretation. I'm just saying that I don't think it would make for a very good viewing experience to most non-diehard Christian audiences. Where Passion made these sacrifices entirely external, Temptation took Jesus' sacrifice and turned it into an internal struggle, a take that I found profoundly more interesting. In Temptation, Jesus' sacrifice isn't just how much he got physically abused. That's there too, but it was more about what it meant to give up his life as a man in order to accept the responsibilities of being a god, and grappling with the fear, uncertainty, and desires he would have to give up to fulfill that duty.
You're here to trick me.
Trick you. To love and care for a woman to have a family. This is a trick. Why are you trying to save the world?
I'm not going to say that I thought Temptation was a perfect movie. I was honestly kind of in the middle about it, but there's at least some substance to it. Both films are deeply personal. Temptation is a film Scorsese always wanted to make, and it's a film about a man struggling with his faith, directed by a man known for his struggles with his faith.
God loves me. I know he loves me. I want him to stop.
It's November 10th. It's the next day, and we're waiting now for setting up the John the Baptist sequence.
Conversely, the Passion to me came across more as a depiction of perceived modern persecution. A fairly common delusion among the American right is the idea that Christians are the victims of systemic persecution, and if this film were to have any meaning to it beneath the surface, that's what I felt it was trying to convey.
You can torture me all you want, I still won't tell you!
Torture you?
Ah, so you do intend to torture me, huh? Well, go ahead. Do your worst. You still won't get your ticket money back. I can take whatever you can dish out.
I do think the two gentlemen's respective worldviews do reflect on the quality of the final product.
I wonder if this flickering red light means that we're taping.
In the places where Passion fails, Temptation mostly succeeds. Jesus, whether canonically accurate or not, is a tragic character, and you feel he's truly sacrificing something when he's put on the cross. Not a temporary physical sacrifice, but forever giving up the life he wanted. A family, kids, a simple man's life, for something greater. It's easier for me as the audience to sympathize with this Jesus, because his is an experience we can all relate to. We all have to sacrifice certain things that we want to do for various bigger picture reasons. In that sense, Scorsese's Jesus is definitely not the Republican Jesus. This is a Jesus filled with love, kindness, empathy, and selflessness.
If I was a woodcutter, I'd cut. If I was a fire, I'd burn. But I'm a heart and I love, that's all I can do.
Multiple times throughout the film, Jesus references the inherent immorality of excessive wealth, while others are destitute.
So take your bread and give it to the poor. What difference does it matter what you own? You have gold and silver, it's going to rot. And that rot is going to eat away your heart.
And the meek, they're the ones who will be blessed. And the suffering, they'll be blessed too. And the peacemakers, and the merciful, and the sick, and the poor, and the outcasts, you'll all be blessed, because heaven is yours.
God doesn't need a palace. He doesn't need cypress trees or dead animals. He doesn't need shekels.
Making a good profit? Fair.
Nikos Kazantzakis, the writer of the 1955 book Temptation was based on, was actually a socialist, and I think his beliefs regarding economic inequality crept their way into this film's script.
Those whose stomachs are filled now will be hungry later, and the rich will be poor forever.
This is a complex, sometimes angry, but ultimately kind-hearted Jesus who just wants the best for humanity, which makes sense why conservatives in the 80s fought tooth and nail to get this movie banned. Evangelical preacher Bill Bright, who also produced a film about Jesus in the late 70s, actually offered to buy the film's negative print from Universal Pictures just to destroy it. More like Bill Not So Bright, am I right? A separate religious group gathered hundreds of people outside of Universal's headquarters to picket the film, causing several theater chains to not screen the film as a result. A far-right Catholic group actually bombed a French movie theater that was showing the film, injuring 13 people and severely burning 4 of them. Scorsese, too, got death threats just for making this film, and Blockbuster chose not to even carry it as a rental upon its release on VHS, all because their favorite anime character kissed a lady. It's crazy, yo. I'd love to talk to you about Passion's Jesus and his worldview more, but like the inside of the head of the person who made this movie, there's just nothing there. Wait, who is that? Roger Ebert? What are you doing here in my bizarre Christmas special? What's that you're holding? Oh, it's your review of The Passion of the Christ? Oh my god, you gave it 4 out of 4 stars? That's bonkers, dude. What'd you give Temptation? Also 4 out of 4 stars? Ugh. I respect Ebert, but something does not add up here. So did Passion do anything better than Temptation? I think I like the score more. I'm not a big music guy, so I don't really pay attention to score a whole lot, but I didn't personally like Temptation's weird prog rock infused score. Passion's was a little more conventional, which stood out to me less, so there's that. I thought it was interesting that all of the dialogue was in era-accurate languages. Gibson, the fucking loon that he is, originally wanted the film to have no subtitles, which would have made it less watchable than it already is. Let's talk about who was the better white Jesus. Don't worry, I'm not gonna moralize and tell you that you should be outraged that both Jesuses look like that picture all of your grandmas have in their houses. Still, I personally found it kind of hilarious, especially in Temptation. Like, the film is telling me that this is 1st century Israel, but there's this blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy walking around, and I'm just supposed to accept it. Every time there'd be like a shot of a crowd and you'd see people who look closer to what you'd expect in the region, it would cut to Defoe and it would feel like a slap to the face. He looks completely out of place in every scene he's in, and it honestly kind of kept taking me out of the movie. Again, not pearl clutching, he just doesn't look like a 1st century Galilean Jew whatsoever. Caviezel is better, I guess, but not like much better. He still just looks like a white European, but at least he's not blue-eyed and blonde. One thing that did stand out to me was how tall Caviezel is. Man's 6'2". Statistically speaking, Jesus would have been a short king, closer to 5'5". Defoe stands at 5'9", so his on-screen presence felt more right to me. As for which performance I preferred, I'm going to give this one to Defoe as well. Caviezel's performance was good, but Defoe is like a top 10 actor working today. It's like comparing DK Metcalf to Justin Jefferson. Like, yeah, DK's solid as fuck, but Jefferson's on a whole nother level. Don't worry nerds, there are no more sports analogies in this video. Kind of a side note, but I dug into other portrayals of Jesus in film and found some fun stuff. Did you know that in 2018, Joaquin Phoenix played the big man, with his partner Rooney Mara playing the titular Mary Magdalene? I thought that was kinda interesting, especially given his history. In 2015, we had Last Days in the Desert, starring none other than Ewan McGregor as Jesus. Did you know this movie existed? I'm kind of surprised it's not talked about more, given that there's a meme of people hanging up photos of him as Obi-Wan and convincing their parents and grandmas that he's Jesus. This movie should have been called Cheap to Make, given that it's shot entirely in the desert with only a couple other characters in the whole film. They couldn't even get someone else to play Satan. Ewan plays him too. He's not even in a different costume. That's so you can film both angles of your shot immediately one after the other. That way you don't lose your lighting. Christian Bale also played Jesus in a 1999 TV movie called Mary, Mother of Jesus, whose poster is just a delight. Alright, let's move on to another topic. Which film is less anti-Semitic? On a scale of 1 to Kanye, Temptation is a 1. Passion is like 4 Kanyes. This is another aspect that was talked about to death over the last 2 decades, but like, I was kinda expecting it to be more subtle, but it isn't. The main antagonists of the film are a gaggle of Jewish high priests who want to stop at nothing to put Jesus to death. The film also portrays Herod Antipas, ruler of Galilee, as debaucherous and effeminate.
U Yeshua din țară, Mahadli,
With his mannerisms, I got the feeling that he was supposed to be gay or queer-coded in some other way, which I couldn't find any record of, so I got the feeling that it was trying to be homophobic as well. I couldn't find any record of Mel Gibson also being homophobic, so who knows what they were going for? Oh no. There it is. Yeah. The film goes out of its way to pass off all of the blame for Jesus' death, from the Romans to the Jews. Aww, Pilate really didn't want to hurt Jesus. Aww, his wife or whatever gave Jesus' mommy some cloths? From what I've read in my research for this video, there do seem to be some conflicting accounts over the role of Pontius Pilate in Jesus' death, but is it surprising that Mel Gibson, a Catholic who said this to an officer arresting him for a DUI 2 years after the film's release, would choose the position rejected by the Catholic Church that paints the Jewish community in a negative light?
I'll be more convincing than Mel Gibson when he apologized to the Jews.
I'm really sorry about your big noses. I'm really sorry about how greedy you are. But most of all, I'm really sorry about your dirty, underhanded, backstabbing ways.
I don't want to dwell on this too much longer. The story has been told a million times over. I was just stunned by how obviously anti-Semitic feeling the movie was.
Jesus, oh how I love you, Jesus.
Alright, let's move on. Any other places to compare or contrast?
Couldn't you stay awake with me for just an hour?
They both open with a quote. Oh, when Jesus kisses Judas, temptation has him do it on the lips, whereas passion has him kiss his cheek. I guess two guys kissing on the lips would have been way too gay. I also thought it was interesting how in Temptation, Jesus actually asks Judas to betray him.
Then you must keep your promise. You have to kill me.
If you were me, could you betray your master?
No. That's why God gave me the easier job. To be crucified.
The typical story is that Judas Iscariot betrays Jesus on his own accord. This is how Passion portrays the event, but Temptation handles it differently. I honestly couldn't really find anyone else talking about this diversion, but there are many ways you could interpret this change if you were to look at it from an analytical perspective, which I'm not going to do because that would take real effort. There is one 2nd century document, a non-canonical Christian text translated in 2006 called the Gospel of Judas, that does suggest that Jesus perhaps instructed Judas to commit the betrayal. Like many early Christian documents, this is generally considered to be apocryphal, and it's not part of the Bible, but I thought it was interesting. In both films, we see Satan tempt Jesus.
Your heart is so greedy. It pretends to be humble, but it really wants to conquer the world.
I never wanted a kingdom on earth.
Temptation sees Satan tempt Jesus with a normal life, offering him normal human experiences, sex, a family, etc. You know, a normal experience for people other than you, nerd who watched this video nearly all the way through. Passion, Satan, on the other hand, is more like the Emperor at the end of Return of the Jedi. I always wondered what motivation there was for Luke to join the Emperor here. What exactly is Satan offering Jesus? Power? That's not really set up to be something Jesus wants. Satan just kind of floats around and looks creepy. I did laugh out loud when he's finally crucified and Satan's in hell all mad. It's like something out of Bible Man. It's just comical. Is that supposed to be the Antichrist? Bro, everyone knows Obama is the Antichrist. Oh wait, no, he's the Antichrist. I'm so sorry, Lord, please forgive me. Another weird aspect is that they kept referring to Jesus as Yeshua in Passion.
Yeshua Nazaret.
Temptation calls him by his real name, Jesus.
They call me by name. Jesus.
But in Passion, no one seems to be able to say his name right. Huh? What? That's how his name is pronounced in the original Hebrew? Bro, you're telling me Jesus' real name is Joshua? Bro, now I see why they changed his name. Ain't nobody gonna worship Josh. I know Josh. He works at my local Safeway, and he always puts my Ben & Jerry's in the same bag as my JoJo's, so they're always cold when I get home. I don't want to worship him, fuck that. Anyway, statistically, 90% of people who started watching this video are not currently watching, so I feel like I may as well stop. If you're part of that remaining 10%, why don't you type something silly in the comment section? Let's go with I don't know, I wish they made a Mega Man game only with Jesus as the main character. Type some variation of that. Make people confused as to why a bunch of people are dying for such a product. Also, if you watched this far, consider liking and subscribing. It's cliche, but every single interaction with any of my videos helps the channel out an unthinkable amount. So to recap, Temptation is the better film, Defoe is the better white Jesus, Scorsese is the better filmmaker.
I wish I had more energy for these things. I could actually make a very nice little diary.
And Passion is 4 Kanyes on the anti-Semitic scale. Temptation, imperfect though it may be, is a film rich in thematic depth that portrays Jesus as a tragic and complex person. Passion isn't much of a film at all, and is more of a blunt visual portrayal of Jesus' final hours that bored me to tears and had me cracking up at the excessive violence. I'd recommend checking out Temptation, but it's something that will demand your full attention. It's not an easy film to watch. I guess I'd recommend Passion if you're a grandma who wants to cry over some guy named Josh getting beaten up. Maybe if you really hated Jesus, you'd have fun watching Passion. Would I recommend either film for Christmas? Not really. Thanks for watching or whatever. Oh, you're still here? Okay, we can keep going, final 1% of viewers. I'll leave you with this. A photo I took of a man in downtown Seattle back in 2017. I saw the sign and I had to ask him what it meant. I assumed it was more of a hippy-dippy, weed is love, Jesus is love type BS. But no, he explained to me that he thinks that Jesus literally is marijuana. Now, ignoring his $500 Burberry scarf, you're probably wondering about the obvious Hitler stash. I don't remember if I asked him about it. I think I assumed it was just some weirdo Seattle ironic thing, like he was trying to bring it back or something. If you Google Jesus' weed, you can find a few Reddit posts or tweets and maybe a video or two of people running into him. For the past half decade, he has just been standing around Seattle events, holding up his sign. Every city has that guy that everyone in town knows. You'll see him sometimes, you'll have a laugh, you'll move on. Just when I was giving up on trying to find out who he was in the 2 curious minutes I spent Googling, I did find one video of him arguing with a bunch of libs protesting Trump from a few months after I took my photo. The short of it is, no, he just admires Hitler and is a Holocaust denier.
Democracy. I think Hitler was Christ. Literally, he was Christ because he...
And is otherwise pretty clearly a paranoid schizophrenic, so the fact that I'm giving him this much airtime is probably immoral.
What do you care about? They have voted to allow mentally ill people to purchase bingo. They have voted to allow Alaskans.
What's my overall point of this tangent? I honestly don't know. I think I just wanted to share something weird I found and I didn't think it deserved its own video, so I stuck it here in the dead zone of this barely related video. Anyways, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, etc, etc. Let me know your thoughts on this video in the comments, and be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. They couldn't even get someone else to play Satan. Obi-Wan plays him too. Obi-Wan.